Hi folks, Champagne Friday again, and we are in the island of Gotland, one of my absolute favorite places on the planet. I don't know, but in Sweden definitely, and it's actually one of the places I picked for champagne hiking, the official places up in the north. Now we are down in the south, and I'm sitting here with the CEO of our champagne club company, Ulf Nilsson. And you see what we have here. Probably you look more in this direction than you look here. It's normal.
Quite understandable.
Quite understandable. But good friends since not so many years. But why are you here and why are we here?
Well, always been interested in wine, and originally to get a bit dizzy and chase women. After a while, learned to
that's
taste
original.
more. Yeah, it is, isn't it? And then I've learned to appreciate older wines. I mean, stored wines, mostly red then. And there's always been a ceremonial thing about red old wines, and you sit around, you talk silently, gurgle and all that. But I'd never experienced that with champagne until I met you a few years ago. And we went to Champagne together, and you introduced me to, well, the houses, but also I realized that Champagne has as much, if not more, to gain from aging and from high quality. So the quality of really good Champagne, which has been aged for decades, even surpasses most of the red wines, actually. So I'm now...
we knew it. But...
You knew it, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you surely did before I did, but now I know it too.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've started to drink this and a lot, and we do champagne hikings outdoor as we are now, getting the lovely scent of the roses behind us and other scents in the Swedish summer day this afternoon as we are, which you can then recognize within the champagne, which enhances the experience even more. So champagne, beautiful, outdoor, even better.
Yeah, you're a real champagne hiker. You as soon as we, as soon as I launched the concept, you started to make your own hikes, and you wrote to me about, you know, I got this new note standing here, and I was here a month ago. Now it's the olfactory picture is completely different, and today I would prefer that and that. It's
another dimension to wine, and it doesn't work that well with red wine actually.
No.
Sometimes if it's very warm, very still, but champagne is a perfect drink for outdoor. And also I think champagne is much more complex, or at least more complex. There's more notes, different notes to pick up, and so it's like a chameleon. It transforms itself, the smell from the champagne transforms itself depending on where you are outdoors and what the different smells are where you sit.
I don't know how much you read about it or heard about it, but the concept of champagne hiking, when I introduced it, of course I knew that I loved it so much, but to be really certain that we did not start the concept wine hiking broad, because you knew that's a big thing to make wine hiking. It could be exclusive in doing this worldwide, drinking wine outdoors and look about different experiences in the environmental influence of the wine. But as Ulf says, the differences were too small. The gain of bringing something outdoors was not linked to anything else than you enjoyed sitting in a place. It tasted well, it tasted almost the same or less good. But with the champagne, the chameleon effect, where you enhance the impressions of the champagne, or it follows where you are. What we're doing right now is, it's just 5 minutes before we were indoors, and we met in a Zoom meeting. I hate Zoom meetings, but we were in Auvillé, in the monastery of Auvillé, meeting Vincent Chaperon, the winemaker of Dom Pérignon, having a wonderful discussion. We should do it in 1 hour. We did it in 2. because so many things to speak about, and we miss each other and the reflections around the Dom Perignons. We won't do all of them here, but having them fresh in memory and now being outdoors, I would say that we are in the first in the world to taste these wines outside Champagne, and it's the new release that will be released late in autumn. So we're here in the Swedish summer, enjoying two fantastic champagnes. The P1, it's not on the label. P1 it should be. That's what I want it to be. The first release of Dom Perignon, the 13, and the 04. One of my absolutely most charming Dom Perignons for a long time. I think it's the most charming of the vintages, the most flamboyant of the vintages in since the millennium, and the new baby. So, tasting them and adding a few comments. Ooh, wow. Most important impressions, the 13. First impression of Dom Perignon should be nothing analyzed, just Dom Perignon. It's Dom Perignon. The day a glass of Dom Perignon will be, I think it's slightly more acidic, I think it's a little bit too toasty, or things like that in the first impression. That's not the day I want to see. For me, it should always be in the frame of Dom Perignon. The frame of Dom Perignon is quite wide. You can have these tremendously rich, big, huge vintages like the 03 and the 76 and others. You can have these very, very fresh, light-bodied, beautiful, exceptional ones like the 66, which is today my absolute favorite, still almost having a color like this one, or some more recent vintages. But you can also have the more exotic ones, like the 2010, which is Pineapple Garden in comparison with the 12, which is more a classic one. But here, the 13 is a little bit shy, is a little bit short, is a little bit young, but it's very precise. It's very precise. It's slightly more mineralic. It's slightly more salty. It's a slightly more precise minerality in a way which is the trend within Champagne today. So it's a modern perception of Dom Perignon because of this precision, almost grower-like minerality, especially from the Cote Blanc notes. Less toasty, and for me, one of the most striking things is that if you look at the fruitiness, is a little bit of Granny Smith and those things that you always have with a champagne when it's around 10 years old. But it's, oh, what's happening? What is happening? Are we back? Are we back? Yeah. Technical problems. That's what strikes me the most within the fruit. You have a little bit of the Granny Smith apples, which you should have when a champagne is around 10 years of age. A little bit of apricots and peaches and those kind of notes. But most of all, it's very orangey. It's mandarin, tangerine, yuzu, lime, lemon pie, those kind of notes. And normally when you have that, you might have slightly too harsh and sharp acidity. This is not the case. It's Dom Perignon, folks, which is always like a soft pillow. It's wrapping around the palate. Soft, seamless, and beautiful texture, of course. So, classic one, a little bit shy, age a long time, not so much direct in your face type of vintage like many others, but very refined, and one of the best champagnes made in 2013. P2, 2004, big grand premiere. The P2 concept, thank you. We're so happy to have it. as I discussed with Vincent in the Zoom meeting, just is how much more it gains than the oxidative types of champagnes, like the Bollinger, for instance, which is made in oak barrels, and you have a very direct oxidative character from the start. When you late disgorge those kind of champagnes, they get slightly fresher. You can age them a little bit more within the first years, but in the long term, they're actually better off being La Grande Année. But with the P1 and the P2 and the P3 Dom Perignons, they always gain on this extra time on it lease. Because they will never lose their fruit. They will never lose the floweriness. They will always gain in density, concentration and weight. And that's the case here. A small criticism, not in the way it's done, but for this wine in comparison to what was been done in the past, is that I was so much in love with the 04 as a regular Dom Perignon P1, and the style, the things that made me fall in love with the 04 is so much connected with the flamboyance, the charm, the slight lightness that 04 has got. It's a slightly diluted vintage on the paper, but the balance and harmony is tremendous. So what is happening with the P2 is that it gets more concentration, it gets more gastronomic, it gets more serious, it's a bigger wine, but a little bit of the fruity charm is lost when it's recently disgorged. So if you still got Dom Perignon 04s, open them next to the P2, and I would say it's the first time when I not directly say, wow, P2 is better, because of the characteristics of the vintage, nothing else. So for me, my guess is that drinking P2 04 today, within this year, next to the regular vintage one, I would prefer the vintage. In 2-3 years, the other way around. The concentration that you gain, the saltiness, the licorice notes, the Burgundian complexity and concentration, which is very similar to a great Pérignon Montrachet, is something tremendous. So always when you get my comments, it's a little bit of love, it's a little bit of flatter, it's a little bit of criticism, which is very important to have all parts. I would say all P2s are so much better than the regular vintage. Not the case with this vintage, but still a beautiful wine, and with time it will become even better. Okay, Ulf, I spoke so long, as usual, when we taste champagne together. Now I will shut up and I will just say cheers.
Cheers. Beautiful song, though.
Yeah.
Or sound.
Cheers for Dom Perignon, P1 and P2.